to make this run, the podcast hosting, and just the numbers of other things. And who knows, one day maybe more exciting things like meetups and stuff like that, but your support always helps us out. So anywho, the bets in the comment section are that we were late because of me.
Hold on, pause. Did we just go live 28
I think we,
seconds
yes,
ago? So Paul,
I am the reason we're late.
Well, there was an initial reason we were late, and then
and that is my
second
fault.
reason.
That was a technical difficulty on my part, but it was an operator error technical difficulty.
We went live in the middle of your spiel.
Oh,
Jeremy.
well, it's the normal spiel we do every single week.
As someone who has to edit this tomorrow, can we just roll it from the top?
You want to start it from the top again?
I have some sort of intro.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Okay, we're starting over again because Paul left up. Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. And make sure and stay current on ish happenings on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Evangelicalish. That's evangelical with an ish. Now to Paul, Jeremy, and April on this episode of Evangelical-ish.
Welcome into Evangelical-ish. It is so good to see everybody this evening. I'm Jeremy.
I'm April.
And I'm Paul.
That was
it's almost like I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, it's like we've been here before. But man, so good to see everybody this evening. Glad you're with us. And hey, do us a favor, go follow Evangelicalish on all the social media platforms and join the Facebook community. Evangelicals Facebook community. Make sure and answer those couple of questions so that you can hop in. We just like to keep that space safe for everyone, and so just by answering those questions, it kind of helps us out. And then just to make sure that everybody's going to play by the rules. And then also, if you go to evangelicalish.com, you can support us $4.99 a month. It just helps us with all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes that makes Evangelicalish and this community tick. So $4.99 a month, it's like less than one Starbucks cup of coffee a month. So definitely join us there. But today is super exciting. Today is episode number 100.
I can't believe it. That's a big deal. 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time. Over 100 hours being live on this show, in this little YouTube square.
Yeah.
That's a lot of chatting.
Yeah, we have done a lot of chatting. We've had some really amazing guests, some folks that have just really been insightful. We've had some challenging seasons. We've kind of ridden the ups and downs together. Yes, and it is season 72 for those of you keeping score at home. But I think that the interesting part is kind of how we've all grown in the last, because this is 3 years. So how we've all grown in the last 3 years, and how just we've changed and the show's changed. I mean, it's been kind of crazy. Some of it's a little bit cringy, but it's exciting to look back at the last 3 years for sure.
Yeah, because when we started, it was February of 2021, I think was when we first went live. And then it took us like a month to actually get the episodes in podcast form. So this February will have been 3 years. So we are starting our 4th year, which is now our 4th season, since we decided to do it by years and not do 100 seasons a year. Yeah, because this would almost be like our 100th season, by the way. We used to do the math.
Every 6 episodes was a new season or something like that.
I think we did 8, because I think initially we did 8 on, 2 off, which was very ambitious. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why we've toned it back after a while. We're like, this is we're running out of things. We're repeating ourselves. We are saying the same things a lot over and over again.
I think we still hit 30, almost 30 shows this year, in like calendar year 2023. And then the couple of years before that, we had done like 37 or something like that. So yeah, we toned it back, but not like crazy amounts. I mean, we're still averaging more than once every 2 weeks, which, I mean, for a podcast that's been running this long, it's awesome.
Look at us. We did it. We just started off as 3, or I wouldn't even call us friends. We were 3 mutuals on TikTok. And so one thing that the 3 of us did, we were gonna like pull clips and stuff from our very first episode of being like, oh, this was really cringy. But then we listened back to it and we're like, well, yeah, that we said some cringy-ish things and moments, but most of it honestly wasn't like, I'm still pretty much in the same space in a lot of ways, at least that I said on the air. But I just think it's interesting how when we first met, we were just like 3 people, strangers in 3 different time zones that were like, hey, let's just start a podcast.
That's listening to the first episode. I think that was what struck me the most, is like, gosh, there was a time when I barely knew these guys, that there was a time when this was all brand new. And so, yeah, I don't think there are a lot of podcasts that make it to 100 episodes. I think there's a lot of podcasts that don't make it to 20 episodes. So yay for us.
I read a statistic one time. I forget the source, of course, but it said that basically, like, if you took all of the podcasts that live on Apple Podcasts, the average is like 3 episodes or something like that.
Wow.
Podcasts that are out.
Wow.
So, if you do like a year of podcasts or 25 episodes, anything like that, like you are, kind of senior podcasters in the game at that point.
Well, because I think most people start a podcast, they're like, we're going to change the world. And you make the podcast and then like 20 people listen to it,
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Your uncle on Facebook is like, I don't really like this pod thing.
One of the things that has changed, April, your partner Beecher in the chat, they say this, that you've finally descended into hell.
That's just my lighting. I cannot figure out how to make my lighting not red. Beecher's always, because Beecher likes to come up here and like prepare my space so my lighting's good. I was messing with it before we went live. I've changed the color temp on this ring light so many times. I cannot not look like I'm in hell. And I don't know what that means. Maybe.
So here's Paul W. Do you have highlights like the first time April swore? I did. I pulled a clip of this, summarizes where we've come in the last 3 years perfectly. Let me play a clip.
There's been moments especially in the last 4 years, but this year especially, where I'm just look at the world and like, what the crap is actually happening?
I mean, yeah,
We've taught April to swear.
Yeah.
I said, what the crap? I think the first time.
No, you said, what the crap?
I paused. Yeah, I remember we had an episode somewhere in the first season where we talked about cussing. And actually, I posted a clip of Paul talking about how cussing wasn't that bad. And we went viral like on our evangelical-ish TikTok page at the time. That was back when we were more active in posting clips. But I said on there that I was bad at cussing and that I couldn't cuss. And then I tried to cuss and I like said, shit. Like I whispered it, like I couldn't say it. And I am better at cussing. I still don't do it a ton, but it can roll off when necessary now. So that is something that has changed. That's true.
That has greatly changed.
We made you descend into hell.
I know. And look, now I look like I am hanging out with Satan over here. Little Lucifer in the background.
Oh, this is Stephanie says in the chat, you've gone from crap to pushing vibrators.
That is also true. I literally have like the one brand that consistently sponsors me is a sex toy company. So I've now posted, I think, 3 different ads for vibrators. So Yeah.
I bet you didn't expect that 5 years ago of
Oh
yourself.
no, not at all. That is I stand by it though. That I like to sell products that I believe in. And I believe in the vibe. Anyway,
I'm afraid to say anything.
I know. I was like, this doesn't feel like MySpace.
MySpace or Facebook? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I will say I listened back to our first episode and I'm curious to notice like what y'all's thoughts were. But one thing that I noticed right away was we were so not really that comfortable with each other yet in like a conversational space because there were a lot of pauses. And I was editing the show and I didn't edit them out. Also, our audio was way worse. I don't know if like
Yeah.
maybe we had bad mics or I didn't know how to edit the audio yet. But yeah, I noticed that just like those awkward getting to know each other pauses, like kind of like we were all on a first date live in front of people.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge, right? Is like because you, especially when you're having these conversations like online. I mean, first off, like any Zoom meeting is awkward, right? Like at work or anywhere.
Mhm.
But when you're having these conversations online, if you're not familiar with the mannerisms of someone else or you haven't built like rapport, you don't know when they're going to stop. And so you're kind of like herky jerking to know when you're supposed to like jump in. And I think we were all kind of afraid to jump on top of each other. And, it was just, and then I think I went through a season where I was like, I'm gonna fill the space. And then that was kind of problematic in and of itself. Cause it was like, instead of having all these awkward pauses, then I'm just gonna, patch all the holes. And that's not great either. So those growing pains are intense.
Yeah. Beecher asked, and I think this is we haven't really talked about this, I think, since our very first episode, but Beecher wants to said, remind us how this podcast began.
Ooh.
I think Paul, you were the instigator, yeah?
I don't actually remember how the podcast began per se, but I do remember reaching out to each of you.
I know you were the one that had first initiated a meeting between the three of us. I think you said you had reached out to a bunch of different creators on TikTok about, at that point it wasn't a podcast, but it was just brainstorming of how to collaborate in different ways. And Jeremy and I were the two that responded and were like, hey, we'll meet.
Well, so what I remember was I did your podcast, Paul.
Right.
And then, we kind of just started chatting off air, and I think it was just kind of like a deal where both of us had kind of been thinking about like, it'd be really great to get some other voices from this space involved. And both of us had seen April, or you mentioned April, and I had seen her, obviously, the viral sensation, April LaJoy on TikTok. And so, yeah. And I think once the three of us kind of hopped on like a Zoom meeting and we chatted through everything, it was, this was kind of the best idea that we came up with, just because I think probably just because of the distance challenge of, being in 3 different time zones, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think we met a couple times and decided to do a podcast. And then we brainstormed on what the name was going to be. And Jeremy did our graphics and made us look good. And
I think, Jeremy, you came up with the name too, didn't you? Or
yeah, I think it was like we definitely were like, because we worked on the name for a hot minute. Like we were batting around all these different ideas. And I think it just kind of like came out on accident at some point. Like, I don't even know if I can take credit for the name, just because it's like, I don't know what is this? It's like evangelical, ish, and we say like, that's very like common language, I think, in today's like speech or whatever. And so I think it just kind of like fell out, and we were all like, oh, that's it,
And the series, I think the series Blackish was out at the time too. Maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
But they're saying we almost went with We the Sheeple.
I do. That was one that I think I threw out because we kept being called sheep, and we're like, we should was like, maybe we can do a take off something that we're regularly called, and it's like baby killer. I'm like, no, that's not good.
The Baby Killers.
The baby killer.
That's a
Baby
great
Killer-ish.
band name.
We the sheeple.
And that was one of the things you were saying, April, is that we talked a lot about abortion at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I think at least for me too, at that point, abortion was like the last thing I had like that kept me in that more conservative space because I just didn't understand about it. I feel like we talked about it a lot. And one thing I think for all of us maybe is that one was the one that surprised me the most in learning how much I actually didn't know about that issue. And then when I realized, oh my gosh, it's not like murdering babies at 9 months like Fox News told me, then I was like mad. I was like, people need to know. People need to know that that's not what it is.
People need to know. Yeah.
Why don't we do a podcast and tell them?
Yeah, we should tell them. Let's tell them. That's
But
pretty good.
it was the one. I think it was a freeing issue for me too. I was never a virulent anti-abortionist and used to get some flack for it, and I was just sort of like, well, why don't I feel as passionate as other people do about this? And I did a crazy thing and read the Bible, and like, gosh, it's not even in here. Like, it's that the issue is never raised. So why is it the most important thing for us as Christians if the Bible didn't find it to be a very important issue?
I think talking about that, I think in the first episode, and we even, I think, talked about this for a minute when we were kind of prepping for the show. Something I had mentioned in that space was like, man, I don't think they're ever going to, like conservatives will ever actually, do anything drastic to end abortion because it's such a stump speech thing, and it's one of their kind of pillars or whatever. So anyway, that didn't age well. And especially with like the news coming out of like, what state was it? Missouri today. That's like, they're pushing legislation to give women the death penalty who have abortions.
What?
Yeah.
That was today?
I read about it today. I don't know if like it
the
broke
death penalty
today. The death penty, capital punishment.
That's oh my god.
Well,
so
honestly,
I need to read into that.
My argument has always been Christians really don't believe it's murder. They really, because if they did, they would be pushing for the death penalty. They would say
apparently some of them do think
women
that.
should be, and I think the polls are clear. Most Christians are not for banning abortion.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of humanity. So it's a very hypocritical issue.
Isn't that? Yeah. I mean, it's extremely hypocritical, but think about like the cognitive dissonance of saying we think it's evil to commit, what they consider murder, right? We think it's evil to commit murder. So if you do it, we'll do it back. like, how does that even make sense? It's like spanking your child for hitting.
It's
right?
it's like the verse where they like an eye for an eye and what's the spoil the rod? What's that?
Spare the rod,
Yeah,
spoil the
spare the
child.
rod.
Which
Yes,
has
right.
nothing to do with disciplining them, by the way.
No, I know it doesn't, but they use it for that.
Right.
But yeah, it's that oh, you can't sin without consequences. And even though we believe in eternal conscious torment, that's not enough. And you need consequences today. It's just very judgy.
We're going to show you how much Jesus loves you by hitting you with a stick. Children.
It reminds me of that Ron White bit where it's like he says something about, we have the death penalty in Texas, so if you come kill us, we'll kill you back. Like that's what legislation like that feels like to me. It's just so obtuse.
It's like that one guy, some pastor on Twitter tweeted this like image. It was after Ohio recently in the election, like codified Roe or made abortion legal, and they did something that was pro-choice. And he was so mad about it. He posted this picture of like, it was in a modern city but it looked like the Crusades. It was like the Christians with the white with the red cross on horses, but they're also tanks. And it was like a battle cry to like, I'm so pro-life, I'm willing to kill for it, was the vibe. He didn't say that. I put that word in his mouth, but that was what the image was saying. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I think for a lot of politically active Christian right wingers today, they are the dog that caught the car, and they're like, oh wait,
Mhm.
just like I don't think you were wrong in what you were saying, Jeremy. I think right wingers didn't think it would ever get overturned, but it sure gave them a self-righteous position, and now I think they're like, oh shoot.
well, I think they made a mistake in, I think you have political pro-lifers who are pro-life because it helps them politically. They use it
Right.
as a wedge issue to get voters in line. You have those people who I don't think really care personally about abortion, but they use it for power. And then the problem is, though, they became so convincing that it's murder that you also have all these other pro-lifers over here that genuinely believe it is murder. And they're like, we have to save babies. And like, they believe it with all their might. And so you got these people that kind of took the charge. And these people are like, wait a minute, we don't actually want to overturn it. And they lost the plot. They like lost control. And now the political ones are like, oh, shoot, this is not good for business. And you can see it. It's been a losing battle consistently in the elections where that was on the ballot.
And those were a lot of the reasons why, like, Paul, I think you described it great. Like, they are the dog that caught the car. Like, it was the thing that they could bark at and chase and like get everybody excited about. All the other dogs in the neighborhood were like, get it, you know. But like, like I think that I think that's the reason in my mind, especially 3 years ago or whatever. I thought there is no way they'll actually like approach this issue because of all the things that April just said, April was 100% right. And so now it's backfiring in their face. Imagine that they're catching shrapnel from their own grenades. And it's just, and it just continues to be that kind of thing. But it's been interesting to see that kind of play out in the last 3 years. But yes, my comments, like, they're unfortunately aged like milk. But watching them try to backtrack it is real fun. So
Yeah.
not sure I'm mad about it.
It's also interesting too, how like where you had red states, like, I've seen like the Sean Foyts of the world bragging about all the thousands of babies that they've saved because in red states, the abortion rate did go down because it was banned. Like in the states where it was like basically outright banned, it did go down. Also, how are you tracking that if it's banned, by the way? But nationwide, abortion rate went up after Roe was overturned because people are just going to other states.
Yeah.
But like, if your goal is to actually save babies, you didn't actually save babies. Like your rate went up.
In polling, support for abortion rights skyrocketed. So it was in many ways the antithesis of what they wanted. And it's one of the things that I was thinking as I was listening back to us talk 3 years ago. I think that Paul person that was on that show was thinking, oh, we can share reason and Bible foundation, and Christians are going to hear and they're going to change and they're going to repent. And to Paul today, this guy is like, oh no, they're off the cliff. They ain't coming back. And really have shifted the message to be like, hey, those of us who can't be there anymore, it's okay. We're not going to hell for not being in that church anymore.
Mm.
Yeah. I think when I was listening back to the episode, there was one line that I said, it was towards the end, that was like, ugh. And it's not even anything bad per se. It was just like the language that I used. Like you could just tell I was still like fresh out of evangelicalism because I said, yeah, I just want everyone to know. And then I wrote, Jesus loves you. We love you. We want to walk this journey together. It's like, it's so like small group leader, which there's nothing wrong in per se, but it just felt very, I don't know. Like, I think then I was more hopeful that like, kind of like you were saying that, oh, we can change some minds here and like people will listen to us. And then I got called a demon one too many times. Today I was told, actually, we're not doing our hate comment of the week, but today I was told that I am not a Christian because if I were, I would be mad at Lil Nas X right now.
Did he do something else?
I didn't hear what he did.
Oh, yeah. He's apparently it's actually my favorite thing that's going on the internet right now. He is releasing a Christian song. He says like he's joining gospel music. He's got like all these videos of saying how like his label dropped him because he believes in God, and like he's kind of playing this like Christian persecution angle, but he's totally trolling. He also posted a picture of his acceptance letter to Liberty University and that he's going to go study biblical studies and theology now, and it's signed Jerry Falwell, who's dead, by the way. So like it's obviously a troll, but like they don't know, and there's like Christians are so mad. They're so mad because they like initially they were like, oh, because he's been talking about it for a few weeks now. Initially they were like, oh, let's give him a chance. He's a Christian. Praise the Lord. He finally repented, and he's like definitely is trolling them, and they're big mad. And apparently, if you're not mad, you're not a Christian. So just FYI. And if you want some fun, just go watch it's first class trolling.
Why didn't I think of this? Like what?
That's fantastic.
I should just come out. Yeah, I mean, why didn't I just come out on TikTok and say, I've seen the error of my ways. The commenters have finally convinced me. I'm turning back to Jesus.
Would that have gotten you unshadow banned, Paul?
Maybe. I'm turning back to God.
I mean, and that's one thing that hasn't changed. I feel like, Paul, you've consistently stayed somewhat shadow banned on TikTok.
I'm going backwards in followers now on TikTok.
Another thing that changed. Both of you have new usernames or screen names. I'm the only one that is still April a Joy. Jeremy, you were like Jeremy C Radio back then.
Yeah,
and Paul, you were old Pastor Paul.
I was pastor with a plant to start, and then old Pastor Paul. Yeah. So yes, and Jeremy was that pastor from Oklahoma who voted for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And my username Jeremy C Radio. That was it was
classic.
That was from different time. And
I never read it as Jeremy C Radio though.
Cradio.
In my head it was Jeremy Cradio.
Jeremy Cradio.
I thought your last name was Cradio initially. Like, oh, Jeremy Cradio. Yeah, I know him.
Well, your name has changed, April, because you were April A Joy at one point in my mind, at least.
Yeah. Well, that's your problem because I was always April a Joy.
And I always say, I've said it before, but it was your you being the pastor at White Jesus Baptist Church that really caught my eye, April, and I'm like, oh, I like this.
Oh, I remember that you reached that, and then I was on your podcast too before we started this. So good times had by all. Also, I will say one thing that for me is different now than when we first started the show is I think I was more hopeful that people would change, and I do still hold on to that hope. I don't believe that most. I think initially I might have been a little angrier, and I don't feel that same anger all the time. Like it still hits me in waves, but who has the energy to be angry all the time? But one thing that I feel differently now is when I initially came out of evangelicalism, like I really genuinely was embraced. Maybe it was like love bombing. I don't know. But a lot of like more liberal and agnostic and atheist and progressive people like really welcomed me in and were super kind. And I'm very grateful for that. But I think I had this like false idea of like, oh, everyone on the left is so kind and loving and amazing. And it's so much better over here. And to be fair, it has been better overall. But I have now also run into some pretty hateful people on that side too. And so I think now I'm just like, you know what? I think every group has their problems. One, when you're weaponizing the Bible and bringing God into it, that's extra problematic. And I still hold that, like, that needs to be called out. But I just feel like I've been hit with this more like realistic idea of like, okay, Democrats are way better than Republicans, but they still got a lot of issues too.
Yeah, we went through some kind of, like what felt like really intense drama early on with like deconstruction space people from TikTok, and like, I mean, it was that was pretty eye-opening for me as well, to be like, oh, so some of y'all are still like this, huh?
We were getting called out by progressive Christian TikTokers, right? And like literally putting our face on the screen.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of just like atheist people who just, and most atheists that I've met are very kind, for the record, but it's just been like this push to be like, oh, you're so stupid that you still believe in God type thing. Like you have the Christians on the right that are you're not a Christian because of you're liberal or XYZ, or you voted for Joe Biden, or you aren't mad at Lil Nas X right now. Like all of this list of reasons of why you're not a Christian. And then like in one breath, you're like, okay, whatever, like I'm still a Christian. And then these other people are like, you're so stupid for being a Christian. Literally in the last week, I've had 2 different people tell me that they unfollowed me. One unfollowed me because they found out I was a Christian, and another person unfollowed me because I wasn't a Christian in their mind. So that is like a really weird place to be.
Yeah.
I've said there are fundamentalist atheists out there.
I think there's a fundamentalist everybody out there.
Yeah.
Is what I'm like starting to like every group has fundamentalists.
To me, a fundamentalist is somebody that says, this is my belief and you have to agree, or you're not only wrong, but evil and an idiot. And yes, I've met atheists who have that same stance for sure.
Yeah. And then it just immediately turns into like, kind of tone policing, right? Like everybody's just telling everybody like how they're supposed to talk and act and whatever. And I think early on, especially in that deconstruction community, because, this did all kind of like, we formed out of TikTok, right? Like that's where we all connected and kind of where our platforms came from. I think it was interesting to kind of watch that kind of develop in real time. And I think Paul, you and I even had a conversation at one point, like, and it was like only a year and a half into all this, like there was like this new wave of kind of deconstruction faces in the space. And then they started like kind of coming after us, like, and I was like, man, it feels like they're like, oh, well, this is the way the old guys do it. But, like and it's just like, this is so weird.
We're the OG.
I also think initially too, they're like, because we all met on TikTok, and I really wasn't at the time on any other social media platform. And deconstruction was so new to me that I thought like deconstruction lived on TikTok, like so naively. Like the people have deconstructed since the beginning of time. And like there were people paving that path long before I ever made a TikTok. And then I think leaving TikTok, because also like that first episode, we were so TikTok focused because like everyone we knew in that space was from TikTok. That's where we met, and which is great. Like I'll always be grateful for TikTok in that way. But now I'm like, oh, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook, which is a wild place to deconstruct out loud. But you just realizing like there's people from all walks of life and many other places that are much bigger than like that small pool of TikTok. And that's just been very eye-opening. Like, oh, I'm a small little fish. I'm a small little fish that's swimming behind many other people that have done this before me.
Yeah. And I think, I went on there and, the whole thing of like Charlie D'Amelio dancing, and she had like 300 million followers or something. I'm like, how does this thing work? And what am I doing here? But it was such a massive, I almost said blessing to go back to that's why I'm still it's still stuck in there somewhere. But I really did. I had some sense, my wife and I are the only people in the world who feel this way. And getting on TikTok, all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, we're not alone. We're not the only ones. And so, yes, I am eternally grateful for TikTok and the deconstructing crowd on TikTok and you two that I'm looking at on the screen right now, because it made me know we weren't alone. We weren't the only ones in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was something really beautiful, was kind of discovering that, is that we weren't the only ones.
Beecher said Martin Luther posting the 95 Theses equals Jeremy saying he's a pastor from Oklahoma voting for Biden.
Voted for
It's the
Biden.
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. Martin Luther was
yeah.
the first to deconstruct, and we were second.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people remember, like, am I wrong? You used to always do your videos in your pickup truck with like your gun rack and
I didn't have a gun rack, but
you
yes.
didn't have a gun rack. Okay.
No gun rack. But yeah, always in the old Ford F-150 4x4. And so, now I shoot him in front of the wall that's right behind me. I don't know why I'm holding scissors, by the way. That was just very awkward to be like, anyway.
A little threatening.
But I think that I think that what was really interesting for me was like what y'all are saying really resonates, as far as being someone who was still like very much like holding out hope for probably evangelicalism as an establishment. Like, I don't even think I had even completely gotten to a place where it was like, no, burn all that down, because that's
You were
not
still
working.
an SBC pastor when we started.
Yes. And so it was,
But if I can interrupt, Jeremy, you were more stringent on, hey, let's burn the whole effing thing down than even I was at that point.
Well,
yeah,
privately, not on the air.
Privately, yeah.
Yeah. Privately, I'd gotten to a place where I was a lot more progressive in my thoughts and ideals than what I was sharing publicly. And it was because I was still trying to kind of like
not lose your job,
hold that line. Yeah. Not get fired. Which,
but you were trying to bridge the space still, though, weren't you?
I was still trying to,
a paycheck.
No, it wasn't just a paycheck. Cause I still, listen, I mean, me today, I still really believe in Jesus. I love Jesus a lot. And I still think that the teachings and the goodness and the mercy and the love that Jesus shows is good for all of us. It's good for humanity. But I had hoped that people could understand that this Jesus that we were talking about in evangelical spaces didn't look anything like the one in the scriptures. And I was hoping that they would come along into a space of following the real teachings of Jesus, like the Bible one, not the orange Jesus who has like a gazillion indictments now. But, I think I wanted the establishment to burn down, but I still wanted people to just have that hope and have that peace in loving themselves and loving their neighbors the way that Jesus taught, and being empowered the way that Jesus empowered marginalized people. And so those were things that are still very much near and dear to my heart. But yeah, I was trying to kind of walk that tightrope and bring people into a new space of understanding faith. And that was pretty challenging. And it was like a weight was lifted when I wasn't having to do that. Because then I could speak publicly a lot more freely.
Yeah. It's just such a hard place to be when so much of your life was spent in with these people in this group, and you really have a love for them and for that. I mean, it was like our childhood. We were raised in it, and there's a deep appreciation for a lot of it is good. There's a lot of good to still be said about what happens in churches, and it's not all bad. And you want so hard for the good that is in some people to be able to hear you, for the good to step out and recognize, like, oh, this system is harming people. I need to step away because we're doing more bad than good. Like, you hope that the good can come out and not hate queer people and to stop being bigots and to see like the harm that's causing. Like you hope the best, like it's there. And it's so frustrating when you hit that brick wall and people put their guards up, because instead of hearing you as a human being telling your story of abuse or of hurt or whatever is the truth that you have to share, they put that wall up because what you're about to share would hurt their belief, would kill the dogma. And truth is a dogma killer. And it's been disheartening to see how many people choose their dogma over people.
Yeah.
I stepped out of it all because I couldn't be a part of it anymore, the Republican Party or the evangelical church. But I think today I've realized how much rot there is in the foundation of it. It's like a beautiful building that has been eaten out by termites inside and is just about to fall down. And so I think more than ever today, I realize how rotten at the core, systemically, American, I would say right-leaning evangelicalism. I know everybody's like, not all Christians, but the structure and the system is rotten at its core, and so does have to be like taken down, I think, and we just maybe need to say, hey, Gen Zers, you rebuild this when the time is right, because so that's definitely been a change in me of like, there's no saving this thing anymore. It can't be saved when people I knew and loved and were close with and I knew loved Jesus are posting on social media like, I'm almost afraid to say it because we might get blocked by YouTube, but they're saying do terrible things to the president Biden in Pennsylvania Avenue at Washington, D.C. It's like, okay, yeah, we've been building towards this for a long time. That doesn't just happen. That doesn't just happen overnight. It is rotten at the core.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there's no good. And as I've learned to let go of every bit of inerrant in belief in inerrancy of the Bible, I can love the Bible even more now because I can really explore the heart of what it is rather than trying to prove that these things that clearly are contradictory to one another aren't contradictory. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
No, they are contradictory because they were written by different people in different eras and different places with different motivations. And that's okay. That doesn't negate the story.
Yeah, I think because when I was first deconstructing and I was learning all these, oh my gosh, well, the early church interpreted it this way, or originally it said this translation, and like how, like it honestly just learning how the Bible came to be, which I learned in college, but it didn't like really stick with me until I relearned it. And the rapture freaking not being a belief until the 1800s. That one still pisses me off, honestly. But like just I naively thought, like Beecher and I too, we were a little optimistic, and I was like, oh my gosh, if people just knew, if they just knew that the rapture wasn't a belief in Christianity until the 1800s, they would stop believing it. And then nope, all they would do is call me the end times mocker and scoffer. Like, oh, cool. All right.
I would wear that badge proudly, actually.
Oh yeah.
It's a great badge.
I would love to take them. So one of the other things that's, I think, new over the years is we have our wonderful people who follow us are coming. They come on even before we come on live and are talking to each other in the chat, which I love. And that makes this really worthwhile. But this post from Stephanie, I just put it up a second ago, but Stephanie Christine says, I was still in the closet when I started listening to you all. These three people had a hand in my coming out, and I cannot thank them enough.
That's like, I don't even know what to say, but that's so humbling and heartwarming at the same time. It's really interesting. Beecher and I talk about this a lot, how like our whole lives we felt like we needed to be in the mission field, like whether you're a lay person or in ministry, but like I always felt like this calling of like, I need to help people. Like that's what God's called me to do. I'm going to be in full-time ministry. Like that's the way that I did it. But like we tried so hard to make a difference, like in the church and in different ministries. And it just kind of felt, it never felt super organic. It just felt like you're part of the machine. And since I've
Yes.
left the church, like I feel like I'm actually helping people, like actually doing the quote unquote ministry, which feels weird. Like there's something kind of healing in laughing about religious trauma and like the Stephanies of the world that feel the courage to come out and be their true selves. That like I know like it's not me, but it's like it's this overwhelming sense of it's just I feel very humbled by it. I don't really know what to say, but it's I feel like I've just done more good in the last few years being outside of the church than I ever did inside of the church.
Yeah, I that resonates with me 1,000%. And also, I mean, I just think like I want to hold space for Stephanie real quick and just say, we really appreciate that comment and that encouragement to the work that we're doing here. But the bravery and the incredible strength you showed to come out and to share that with people is something that really needs to be commended. Because at the end of the day, while we may have great conversations around it, you're the person who lives it and you are living your truth now. And that's incredible. So I just kind of wanted to pause and hold that space because I think that's so important that we should encourage folks like Stephanie, because there may be somebody else out there listening right now that's like, feeling hesitant or whatever. And that just shows a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. Stephanie, you're awesome.
Well, if Jesus' mission statement in the biblical gospel story coming out of the desert was heal the sick, give sight to the blind, set the captives free, and declare the year of the Lord's favor, I think that's what we're doing. And again, not like taking credit or saying we're Jesus or anything like that, but just it's what we do as people who walk alongside each other to say, as a person who believed as you did, I affirm who you are now. And, and the number of times people ask, like, I don't believe in hell anymore. Am I going to go to hell for not believing in hell?
Right.
And just being able to say to people like, no, you're not going to hell. You're not. It's just the story is bullshit. It doesn't even make any sense if you really sit and think about it at all. It's a beautiful thing to get to do.
Yeah. And that is the thing that I love the most now, is that I feel like I can love people in a genuine way. I felt like I was when I was a part of evangelicalism. I felt like I was loving them genuinely. But what I realized is that I was very much indoctrinated. It is the greatest MLM that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Is what evangelicalism is. And so, we were all trained, each one reach one, that kind of thing. And we were all
jewels in your crown.
Yeah. And so
plant the seed.
I love being able to come alongside people now and to help them and support them and to not have an angle. That's the best part of all of this, is that my help and my support and my love for you is genuine. And I'm not trying to put your butt in a pew and get you baptized. Like,
preach it, brother. Preach it.
That's so great when we can just help people and just love people authentically and tell them, Paul, that's so beautiful. Like, no, you don't have to be afraid. You are okay. You're beautiful. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, by whatever design. Right. And I think that looks so different for everybody who's kind of walking this journey. But now it's not me trying to climb the ranks of the evangelical church by, tithing, baptism, and salvation numbers. Now it's just genuinely helping people and meeting them where they're at. And is what Jesus was doing in the first place.
Well, it's because you can have relationships without that ulterior motive. You don't have to constantly be wondering, oh, am I enabling this sin? They just told me this sin. Do I need to condemn it? Do I need to pray with them? Do I let it go? And then if you let it go, then like the rest of the day you're like, oh my gosh, am I enabling their sin? Do I need to like reach back out and tell them they shouldn't be doing that? It's like the mind games you play with yourself, like, or even just your like downtime, like watching a TV show and you're like, oh man, I should probably read my Bible. Am I not reading my Bible enough? I should read my Bible. And they're like, God, Jesus, please forgive me for not praying enough. I know it's been like all day. I'm sorry I didn't pray enough. It's like this constant like awareness of what you could be doing better as a Christian, like from what the pastor is telling you. It's like, oh, that was exhausting. How did I live like that? All like
Or-
every moment of every day.
How about this? Like, April, what if Jesus came back while you were doing a video for a vibrator? What would Jesus, what would you think
Yeah.
if Jesus came back at that moment?
It'd be a lot less awkward than using the vibrator.
I'd be like, God gave me a clit. So
I mean, yeah, he put it there.
its only purpose is pleasure. So I'm just using what he gave me.
One thing I wanted to do down the stretch of the show here, that Beecher posted this earlier in the comments, their favorite moments after 100
Ooh,
seasons. The Everything Bagel, says Beecher, Dan McClellan, who was one of my favorite guests ever too, Derek Terry, and Jenna Kraft, who came on to talk about mental health in the church and DID, which has been life-changing for me in many ways. And then Stephanie said Matt Mashiro. So do you guys have a favorite moment that you can remember?
I loved making y'all watch the transformed wife video.
Oh yeah, and then your little
My
quip
joke
at
that
the
I
end of that.
planned. Yeah, where she said that she's like super misogynistic. She's also has said that she thinks women voting like ruined the country. She's not a cool Christian, but she made a video. Someone asked if a husband tells a wife if she has to get the COVID vaccine, do you still have to? And she was like, no, I don't think so, because I would say that you don't have to submit to your husband if it's harmful, like anal sex. I tell girls if their husband wants anal sex, you don't have to submit to that because it's harmful. And then I said, so those are 2 jabs that Lori will not take. And I think it might be my best joke ever. I'm pretty proud of that one. And the way that Jeremy turned bright red live on the air was, I think that might be my favorite moment.
I did not see that shit coming.
I didn't hear
Sorry,
you had it right there in your holster, and then you delivered it right at the right
I was
moment.
ready. I pre-prepared the joke. All transparency. I didn't come up with it right then. But
yeah, no, that was pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. I think for me, favorite, I don't know, there's just so many good things, but I am very partial, and I don't think this comes as any surprise to anyone, but I am just very partial to episodes we get to do with Janice Legata. Janice has just become one of my people. She is absolutely incredible, and just her heart and her perspective and her wisdom is uncanny. And so anytime we get to do a show with her, and the fact that I get to connect with her offline and just, we FaceTime occasionally and things like that, I just, she is amazing. She is her for sure. And so love Janice.
yeah, we do love Janice. I didn't get to spend as much time with her because she filled in for me back in the day.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll have her back.
Yeah, I loved being able to talk to Janice about the Hillsong documentaries, and then when we had the guests, and I'm sorry I don't remember their name off the top of my head, but the Shiny Happy People guests, I just
Yes,
those were really cool.
Yeah, that was so. Yeah, and I actually really liked having the Suburban Witch Hannah on in October.
Is that our most downloaded show at this point?
I think it is. I think it's got like 15,000 downloads, which is just wild. Also, like, can we just say too, like when we started this show, we were like, we don't know who's gonna listen.
Right.
we had a, I mean, for TikTok, it was a decent following, but it was TikTok, and TikTok, it's hard to gauge how many followers you actually have. But like we average like 5,000 downloads an episode. That's like, think about it.
Crazy.
Think about it. There are
crazy.
pastors out there that are super like, I think of like my old pastor who pastors a church of like 3,000 people, and he thinks he's like the coolest, like,
Yeah.
look at these people. And I'm like, I don't know. It's weird to think of like 5,000 downloads as like a mega church. 5,000, like we basically have a mega church service every week. Which is weird to think of it that way. I like to think of it that way because I feel like it would make a lot of pastors really mad.
We need to pass the basket a few more times, I think.
Yeah, we haven't met what God shared with me privately alone that we would bring in tonight. So,
Yeah.
Evangelicalish.com.
I loved, and speaking of Janice, when we did my prophetic word for Jeremy versus Janice's tarot card reading for Jeremy, that was that, and having the witch on, those are things that Paul of 3 years ago would have been very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have had them on if we would have done that first year, because I mean that first year when we started, I was still like in active deconstructing. Like I'd say now I'm more settled and where I've landed, but back then I was still in like existential crisis mode. I'm like, well, I don't know what I believe, but I'm going to talk out loud about it because that seems like the healthiest thing to do. But yeah, and then Beecher, someone mentioned it, Mackenzie mentioned it, that they really liked when Beecher shared their story. When Beecher came out non-binary, when we first started, I was still he, him, and Beecher because they weren't out yet and they were like still in the closet, and we were worried about them losing their job because they hadn't come out publicly yet. And that's like a huge, like that's a big change.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And you guys did your own podcast, as somebody mentioned, and you guys, that's probably not the best term to use, is it? But y'all, how about that?
I know I'm really bad about still using you guys. I think it's okay if like, as long as there's like clearly like a bunch of different genders involved. It's like, clearly I mean that, but I'm trying to just use y'all.
If you're a Survivor fan like I am, Jeff used to always say, "Come on in, guys." And then I think it was 2 seasons ago, he said, "Should I not say that anymore?" And somebody raised their hand and said, "Yeah, you should not say that anymore." So now he just says, "Come on in, everyone," or something like that. So, yeah. But I loved the everything bagel moment, and in no small part because Ginny, who I now know very well, sent me a T-shirt with an everything bagel on it, which I love. But when I did the everything bagel altar call, I was like, okay, that was a good bit, but I'm going to hell. I am going to hell.
Yeah, you were real uncomfortable about that initially.
Yeah,
honestly, that didn't really bother me too much. I think I had done enough already. I was like, meh, if I'm going to hell, it's not going to be for this. It'll be for a million other things. Also, Ginny is something new. Is new. We didn't have her when we first started. Ginny Davis, shout out to her. We don't talk about her a ton on the show. I feel like we should. But she's kind of, for the last year and a half maybe, has volunteered and to just kind of help us keep organized behind the scenes. She helped organize our Nashville live show, which honestly might be my favorite moment.
How could we not?
When we all got to meet
that. Yes.
Yeah, when we all got to meet in person, we did our first live show like in the flesh at a lesbian bar in Nashville, and we brought church to the Lipstick Lounge. Yeah, that was really fun.
And that's when I realized the three of us are not the same height, because
I'm the tallest.
You are.
Yep, we learned that weekend.
You and I are pretty close, aren't we, Paul?
Yeah, we're very close. I think we're about. Jenny said, "I sent you an everything bagel shirt." You don't remember that, Jenny? In the comments, Jenny saying,
"Was it someone else?"
I sure
did
thought
send us shirts. Jenny
I
has
thought it
been
was you,
updated,
Jenny,
though.
but maybe I'm wrong. But I thought it was you that sent me the everything bagel
We
shirt.
still love Jenny though, whether she sent the everything bagel shirt or
Right.
not.
Right.
Well, it's been an amazing ride, and yeah, Nashville was really sweet. And so, do we go to our thing next?
Mid-roll?
No.
Do we? Oh, it's not really a mid-roll. It's a late roll.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is like end of show roll at this point. Yeah. Are we talking about the same thing?
The reason we were late, other than my bad
yeah.
producing, is
Then we're talking about the same thing.
I couldn't think of a non-awkward way to get us
Right.
there, so I just did it really awkwardly.
Man, this has been this community is absolutely incredible. The things that we've done here are absolutely incredible. The the things that are continuing to happen, and I'm so excited about what the future holds for Evangelicalish. So a lot of y'all know that I've had some health issues, and that my family life has gotten really busy, and I started a new position and some things like that. And so life has just been very chaotic, and there is a lot that happens behind the scenes to make the show what it is. And I am very grateful to April and Paul for carrying a lot of that, especially in the last probably year, for sure, just because my life has been so hectic, and we've had some challenges at home and just things like that. So it's just been it's been a lot really fast. All of that to say, just kind of with everything that's happening and all the things in my life that I need to focus on, I am going to step aside from Evangelicalish, and but I'm leaving you in great hands, friends. It's gonna be wonderful. So I am actually going to step aside from Evangelicalish moving forward, and that's just going to be, I think, what is best for the community and best for the show, and best for everyone involved. I didn't make this decision lightly. I don't love this decision, but I do believe it is what's best. So, yeah, I guess that's the punchline.
And we will miss you greatly. And I don't think I think I can freely say this, that we definitely want to have you back too. I wanted to say guest host, but I don't think you'd ever be a guest host. You would just come on and just be a host for a night. But I want to honor who you are, Jeremy, and your voice and all the good that you have brought, and the perspective that you've brought, and the stories that you've shared, and the sermon rants that you've gone on that have fired us all up and made us felt like we were in church. You will definitely be missed. And I don't like ending our 100th anniversary on this note, but I also feel like it's a perfect kind of bookend to go out on a celebration, because you deserve to be celebrated. And I don't say that lightly. Like, you're going to be very missed.
I appreciate that. I am really excited about what the future holds for Evangelicalish, and for what it holds for the community. And yes, I will come back anytime I have the privilege to do so, because sharing this space with you has been so many things for me. It has been good therapy. It's been hilarious. It's been challenging. It's been uplifting. It's been, it's just been all of those things. And so if this was just us getting on YouTube once a week and talking, I don't think I would ever let it go. But it's the challenge of being a good teammate and all of those things, which y'all deserve. People just need to know when their bandwidth is, and I'm really bad about saying when my bandwidth is
And I think we
Definitely.
tried figuring out ways to make all of our schedules work by like we cut back episodes and we took turns taking breaks, and it just, it's a big commitment. I mean, we've done 100
Yeah.
shows in less than 3 years. This is not like a once a month podcast, and we've all talked and agree it's the best thing, but that doesn't mean it's not sad.
Yeah, and I hate moments like this, and the show in and of itself, tonight's episode has just made me remember how much each of you has meant in my life going to this point. And
Yeah.
I think when we were talking the other day, I said there's something symmetrical about you stepping out during this show, but it doesn't feel symmetrical right now. And so just ow, as ET said, ouch, my heart hurts. Yeah, my heart hurts. And but I love you and appreciate you so much, and all that you've been in my life to this point and will continue to be going forward.
You officially also have an invitation to join the comment section. Many people are asking you, please. I was like, the comment section can get kind of lit. Sometimes I think they have more fun than we do.
Y'all thought I went on some rants before. Just wait till I get in that comment section. It's about to get Liddy 550 up in there.
I do. What is your deal with Joseph Yu? He commented on the Evangelicalish page the other day. There was a picture of the three of us, and he says, 2 of my favorite people. So you guys have a fun jabbing relationship.
And I haven't ever discussed this publicly because we don't. But I guess as good bookends, since this is my last Evangelicalish episode, some people come across Joe and I in the comment sections, whether it be on Facebook because we're friends there, or mutuals on TikTok or wherever, and we just say really harmful things to each other in those spaces. Mostly like pastor jokes, like making like, light of either the job or, it's more kind of insider stuff, but sometimes it's just very direct. And so a lot of times either on my page or his page, like people will come at whoever the other person is, like, how dare you talk about him that way, and like blah, blah, blah. And so we always have to be like, we were just kidding. Like, so he and I just have this weird thing, and it's become a really, one of my favorite parts online is that he and I are just rude to each other, and then just to see how it'll rile other people up. It's really kind of a social experiment, honestly. And so it's my favorite game.
It's rattled me a couple of times. I'm like, what? Oh yeah.
No, he'll hop in the comments on here on Wednesday nights and just say ridiculous things about me. And
he's so funny.
And he's hilarious. And so it has become this really funny social experiment between he and I. But he and I get together about once a year. At least we have the last couple of years. We meet down in Galveston and hang out. And so he's one of my buddies. But we definitely give each other a really hard time and just watch we just stand on the roof and watch the world burn at that point. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, he said a few things in like my comments before of like, oh yeah, you're definitely going to hell for this or something along those lines. And I'll have people go after him and like, oh my gosh, you're so dogmatic. But if you're involved also, then I'm an angel and you are the one that's going to hell.
Oh yeah, he'll get on my stuff. Like he hopped on one of my lives and he was like talking about how dare you call yourself a pastor? Why aren't you in your office right now? This is a work day. Like just like slamming me, and then just like taking all comers in the process. So yeah, he's hilarious. But that is the secret behind Joe and I, and why you may see us showing each other some negativity from time to time.
We probably should have explained that a long time ago, because I think
no, it was way more fun to watch happen in real time.
Well, and anyone that it was curious enough, if they just went to Joseph's page, they'd they'd see he's clearly a
Ex-
progressive
Yes,
person.
exactly.
Yeah. So Jeremy, I think I want you to lead us out, but before you do, if you want, nose goes.
In prayer.
Prayer. Popcorn
Lead
prayer.
us out in prayer. Oh my God.
Yeah, see,
That's how it felt.
Yeah, that did feel out. Will the praise band come up, please?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should have had the pads to finish it out.
Oh, we should have ended with Jeremy saying goodbye. Oh, we should have made you do a pastor's farewell. Like,
We could still do that.
yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna do quick housekeeping. We are not going to
No
meet
show next week.
no show next week, but we'll be back the following Wednesday, which is the 24th, I
Yes.
think. The 24th.
Yeah.
So we'll be back the next Wednesday, 24th, live on YouTube, or the podcast will be that week. And we have Pastor Trey Ferguson, who's going to be joining us, and his new book, Theologizing Bigger.
Theologizing bigger. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's how you say that. Yeah. So I'm excited to have that. So 2 weeks off next week. We'll be back the next week. Pastor's farewell. We play the pads. I don't have the pads. I'll just go.
Oh my gosh! Don't do that. Then it feels like we should all be smoking weed. No, I just want to tell everybody how much I love them. I know that the next man that God leads to this seat,
or woman. I don't know.
I thought you said pastor's farewell.
That's true. That's fair. That was a tick. That was
If we want the
triggered.
if we want the good old fashioned fundamental.
Yeah. Okay.
There
Go
ain't-
back. That was a bad habit. Oh,
Oops,
Paul got
sorry.
the pads.
Yeah, let me
Start over. I will hush the feminist inside of me.
let's see if I can. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh man. You know, tonight I just want to finish with one last thought, since this is our last time together. You know, we've spent 3 beautiful years together, church, haven't we? We have.
Amen.
Oh yes, brother.
And,
Yes, brother.
you know, I think about the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. I think about all those times we challenged people to come before the Lord and dedicate their lives. I think about all those times when we raised money for our incredible new rec facility that our staff uses for free.
It's a blessing. Blessing from the Lord.
We filled up that thermometer.
I you know,
Red marker.
yeah, all the light bulbs in the little tree, we did it. You know, I think about how we got 4 years of Donald Trump together.
Amen.
Praise,
Bless you, Lord.
praise Trump.
How America was great again for just a season.
A short season it was.
Yeah. But
he won the election.
but now as I think about the future, I think that what was true from day one is true today, and that is that God is still on the throne, that Jesus is still good. He is still my everything bagel.
Full circle.
Yeah. And so this is not goodbye, friends. This is see you soon, whether it be here, there, or in the air.
In the
We
great
will
by and
all
by.
meet together.
When
again.
we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be.
All right, that's all I got, friends.
I felt the spirit in that, my friend. I felt the.
Did you feel a little bit of that? That was, it's probably the gold dust we dropped from the ceiling, but don't worry about that.
I got the unction of the Lord in me right now.
Quiver in your liver. Is that the Holy Spirit or the kick drum? We'll never know.
Well, it's been an honor to do 100 shows with you, Jeremy, and for everybody commenting and just, it's like you say, it's wild that people want to listen to anything that I would have to say ever. And so I give a lot of credit to you guys for helping me be able to share with a lot of people. And this has been beautiful for 100 episodes.
100
I don't-
episodes.
I don't believe it'll be the last.
No.
You'll be back like an evangelist coming through town.
I'll show back up like old fish at some point, like just stinky, and it's in the ducks somewhere, and one day you'll find it. So
or we'll, if we could find a lot of money in the wall like they did at Joel Osteen's church, that would be good too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, say good night, everyone.
Good
night.
night. We will miss you, Jeremy. You're the
love y'all.
best. Love you. And we love all y'all.
Good night.